so stupid, I should smack it up. Wifey so fine in that glory, had to snack it up. Western than most, they might claim, but I back it up. Not like what Lil Jon was saying, more like clack it up. Tap dance to this when I pop off and blast it up. Yosemite like Sam, yes I can, you was slacking up. I just went off this sequence and I don't care. You could leave a comment if you like, cause I'm never there. God got me onto some things, but they're classified. Baby bought your boy a new ring, it's a tiger's eye. Never afraid of something brand new, you know I'ma try. Less it's got some sugar and carbs, cause I'm on a diet. I'm matching grams of protein to my body weight. I am down 35 pounds and all in 90 days. And if you go ahead and sign up today, I'ma show you how to ball in the fall with a spray. If you wanna chit chat, if you wanna chit chat, if you wanna chit chat, if you wanna chit, if you wanna chit chat, if you wanna chit chat, if you wanna chit chat, yeah.
Yo, what's up? Joey Vantes here, back for another episode of Fight the PSYOPs. Thank you guys so much for being here with me. Look, if you've hopped into the live stream as part of the Legend members only community, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you. You guys have stayed with me. It was a long series, but I think you really got a lot of good content out of it. Now, for those of you who are hopping in right now on YouTube and watching this condensed content, I want to give you a taste of what it's like in the Legend members only community, where you get documentaries, interviews, exclusive content, merch discounts, and so much more. And you can sign up right now by going to joeyvantes.com/join or hit the link down in the description and you can sign up that way. Now today, guys, we're going to show you a doc. And this doc is very eye-opening. I think it's going to show you some things that you may have never known before. Maybe you have. I think it's just going to not only stamp the validity on that, but also give you a resource that you can share with others around you that can open their eyes as well. Because it's one thing to have messaging that people think would be a conspiracy theory because there's no evidence to back it up, no documents, no data, no verifiable sources or people that actually say these things who are experts in their field. But when you have all those things compiled together, it's a great resource to utilize to show people that, hey, this isn't made up from some dude growing a beard in his grandma's, dungeon somewhere in the cellar or in the basement, and he's coming forward and totally disconnected from the world to share some info. No, these are real people intertwined in the inner workings of Hollywood, in the government, in the intelligence communities, and also within American Journal, where the messages are being shaped, put together, and delivered and force-fed to you and I on what they want us to believe. And so stay with me. Let's hop into this. It's called Out of Shadows, and I'm going to stay with you guys and react through it along the way and give you my take on it. And I also want to hear yours. So make sure you drop your comments down below. Now, before we begin, guys, if you like this content and you appreciate the type of content that we're putting out, be sure to hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, give me a thumbs up. Also, be sure to turn on the bell notifications so you get to know anytime we drop new content. Stay with us. Let's hop right into this today, Out of Shadows.
When you think about the entertainment industry, what comes to mind? Movies, TV, music, right? Let's talk about this entertainment.
I've been observing you.
What if this entertainment was more than just entertainment?
Now in complete control!
When you're driving home from work, what are you listening to? When you come home after a long day and turn on the TV, what do you see?
The U.S. are bracing.
Saying that they're one.
Think about all the content you've seen throughout your whole life. A lot of it has actually made us who we are today.
So you don't know what's really going on.
Have you ever stopped for just a second, though, and questioned the content? The only thing we consume more than content is air. But we actually think about the quality of the air we breathe.
You know what's crazy about that real quick, guys, as we hop into this? He's saying the only thing we consume more than content is air. Now, there's a article that I just read literally like 2 days ago in the New York Post that said that they believe now, scientists believe that us breathing, humans breathing, is actually contributing to climate change, to the climate crisis. Maybe we should just hold our breath. I just wanted to throw that out there real quick. That just caught my eye. Let's continue.
Maybe it's time to take a closer look at our content.
And fear. Taxes will be
Our government's always controlled our content.
The fight for freedom.
We've just never paid attention.
Freedom of speech.
Message received.
The police occupy our community.
To work with the CIA to destabilize foreign countries.
This media that we're consuming at such a rapid rate, we need to slow down and think about what we're consuming.
Bullshit going on.
What if the people in charge didn't have our best interests in mind? Now we have to ask ourselves, who's influencing our content?
Is the CIA involved in Hollywood?
Yes. It was an OSS memo, the precursor of the CIA, where they were doing a study of the use of motion pictures in America as a means of psychological warfare. So it goes all the way back to pre-1947, when U.S. intelligence was using motion pictures to alter the thinking of Americans in the United States.
The morale of our troops is high. The laughter, music, and general entertainment which comes out of a single small package like this one have helped to build that morale.
The CIA is funneling information into Hollywood. Hollywood is putting out in the movies, and the population believes it.
Taxes to bury the Axis.
This document right here is a FOIA document. Anybody in America, anybody can request this. It's Freedom of Information Act. And in the 40s, they were telling you they controlled the radio stations. They controlled most of the mainstream media. They're telling you right here that motion pictures are used as psychological warfare. Why would they stop doing it?
At no time has the CIA engaged in any political activity or any intelligence activity that was not approved at the highest level.
Alan Dulles groomed and recruited Ian Fleming, and Dulles and the CIA actually helped Fleming write his books and paint the CIA in a favorable light. And they also, Dulles helped produce Thunderball to make the CIA and agents look like honorable, cool people. The CIA actually helped him write the books and write the script for that movie. And then the president of MPAA was actually providing intelligence to the CIA as an operative in that position in Hollywood.
Mr. Fleming, in your books there's a great amount of detail. Is this detail based on personal experience? Do you make it up? Where does it come from?
Well, I can say it's 90% from personal experience, really. Of course, if I started sticking too close to the true espionage work of today, I should be in trouble with the Official Secrets Act in England, even supposing I had access to information.
We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. Think about that. Let that sink in real quick. We'll know our disinformation program, the program they created. How many times have you heard more so recently about misinformation and disinformation? We'll know the program is complete, that we started, that we created, when everything the American public believes is false.
There's no question about the fact that Mockingbird is real. It started out paying journalists in major media, Pulitzer Prize winning journalists, to print fake stories that the CIA wanted in the press and fake interviews. And this was revealed in the Church Committee.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
And of course, then the CIA destroyed the rest of the files, which is what they do. George H.W. Bush came out and finally made the statement about Mockingbird. Well, we're going to officially stop the Mockingbird program. The CIA will no longer pay journalists to write stories. From now on, the program is voluntary, which means Mockingbird continues today. When's the last time you've seen a mainstream media outlet do a serious investigative report on the actions of the CIA? There's a reason for that.
And that's so true, guys. I mean, think about that for a second. When's the last time you've seen any major publication, any major news outlet do a piece on the CIA? You never see it. Why? Because like you said, it's strategic. Kevin Shipp, right? Kevin Shipp was a CIA operative for many years, worked into intel, psychological operations, all that type of stuff. So he's really well versed in this. And this doc was put together by Mike Smith, who was a stuntman who basically was on set for Batman. I mean, just so many other major films, and then worked his way up into directing and whatnot for Fight Coordinator and all that stuff. But it's crazy to see that this project Mockingbird was created specifically to submit pieces that were hand-delivered, handmade from the CIA and from the intelligence communities, and then delivered into American Journal.
This would mean that the CIA could manipulate the news in the United States by channeling it through some foreign country. And we're looking at that very carefully.
You say that continues today?
Well, I would think probably for a reporter it would continue today, but because of all of the revelations of the period of the 1970s, it seems to me that a reporter's got to be much more circumspect in doing it now, or he runs the risk of at least being looked at with considerable disfavor by the public. I think you've got to be much more careful about it.
Platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 There is something about the way the CIA has been functioning that is casting a shadow on our historic position of freedom, and I feel we need to correct it.
Senator Moynihan proposed a bill to dismantle the CIA.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Introduced it twice. The second time was 1995. Ironically, 1 year later in 1996, the CIA established the Entertainment Liaison Office, which was specifically penetrated into Hollywood, and Chase Brandon was actually co-wrote scripts. For example, The Recruit.
We're looking for high horsepower, high energy, very competitive people who are driven by patriotism and a sense of wanting to serve a greater cause.
I am recruiting you. Would I have to kill anyone? Would you like to?
So the CIA was and is in Hollywood, was and is contributing to Hollywood productions and that manipulation.
The Recruit.
Nothing is what it seems. As I started to wake up, I never actually considered that the CIA had an office in Hollywood. And I'm like, well, I see this, I see that. And I started putting feelers out, like, does anybody else see this stuff? And not many people were awake. But the one person that I reached out to was an old colleague of mine, a friend of mine named Brad Martin. And Brad and I had similar careers. We worked our way up through the business together. And I'm like, hey, Brad, you've seen this, you've seen that? And he's like, yeah, for sure. And so that gave me strength. That gave me like, okay, well, I'm not alone in this deal. And I'm gonna keep looking.
Let me just say this. Brad's one of the greatest stuntmen I've ever met. Probably the best.
I'm a very physically creative person. I've been doing action for movies for 26, 27 years. I excelled at the action aspect of it, at the physical aspect of doing the fights and doing the gymnastics and doing the falls and doing the driving. I trained really hard and became one of the top stuntmen in the business. I started becoming a fight coordinator, and then a stunt coordinator, and then an action director. Very few people have ever gotten to where I've gotten to, and I'm super proud of what I did. I mean, I had a very idealistic view of the movie business, and I've been disillusioned a few times. It feels very much like there's an agenda in every movie. I realized that it was more of a machine, and it was more of they just needed content to put out there for the masses. I stopped really watching TV. I stopped really watching movies. And one of the reasons why I stopped watching movies is I got into my research and what's going on in the world right now, and all the corruptness and all of the plot twists of reality. And I started realizing that reality is 20 times more interesting than Hollywood. I mean, I was a Hollywood buff. I loved all of those movies, but now they're meaningless because I know what's going on right now actually has purpose and has a meaning, and there are consequences. And once this story is told on what's happening in the world right now, and all of the powers that be battling each other, it will be the greatest story ever told. Like, for instance, I saw something on History Channel talking about how the CIA helped Disney buy all the swampland in Florida. Well, why on earth would they do that?
His lawyers in charge of purchasing the parcels had served in military intelligence during World War II and knew how to keep a secret. And they used several different companies, none with Disney's name, to acquire the properties.
Now I go down this rabbit hole of what does the CIA have to do with Hollywood, or at least with Disney? Washington, D.C. is definitely in Hollywood. I have seen documents of the DoD and the CIA writing to the studio heads, guiding them in certain fashion. There's a lot of things that people would talk about that are conspiracy theory, but there's some things that ring true with me. It's like, oh wow, that makes a lot of sense.
Another program developed by the CIA after World War II was called Operation Paperclip. It's been depicted in many movies, including Disney's Marvel series.
It's Operation Paperclip after World War II. SHIELD recruited German scientists with strategic value.
They thought I could help their cause.
Operation Paperclip, and this is something people need to know because it has been so covered up and mocked and berated and claimed to be a conspiracy theory. And by the way, the term labeling people as conspiracy theorists was invented by the CIA to deflect any attention over the JFK assassination. They invented that word as a way to shut down any scrutiny or just critical investigation of what they were doing. So they started that whole ball rolling.
Did you guys catch that? He said that the word conspiracy theory, the phrase conspiracy theory or conspiracy theorist, was invented by the CIA as a way to discredit those who raised any level of concern to question the validity of the claims that were being pumped out either through the media or through the intelligence communities themselves. So it was a way to belittle these people or make them look crazy or stupid and essentially erase any type of weight to any words that they were saying, suggesting, or any questions they were raising. That's an extremely good tactic that they did, because look at how many things have happened over the last number of years, decades, that people have raised questions about who have been shut down that are now coming out. Think about the things like COVID-19, the vaccines, where the COVID-19 actually came from, how that was something that was being worked on. It was trying to be, they patented it, right, at the CDC, and then they took that and funded through a couple different agencies to EcoHealth Alliance, and then offshored it from these college campuses that they were working on the gain of function, and sent that over to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and eventually funneled it back. And we now know all those things that took place that came out of that are not a conspiracy theory. They've been validated now. We know about the fact that these vaccines are giving people all kinds of issues, health issues, causing people to die, myocarditis, pericarditis. I mean, a number of things that have happened specifically through that. And that's just one instance. Think about how many other instances, how many other events historically that have taken place that people would label as a conspiracy theory that actually hold weight and validity, but it's been erased because of this term that was invented by the CIA to discredit people and try to wipe the slate clean from any questions that are being raised, to go into the inner workings and investigate and find out the truth behind what actually took place. Absolutely insane.
In terms of Operation Paperclip, it is documented. There's absolutely no question about it. Alan Dulles, CIA director, was associate of Heinrich Himmler of the Third Reich. So what Dulles proceeded to do when the Third Reich was brought down was he secretly brought all of the top Nazi scientists into the U.S. He falsified their files that he gave to Harry Truman, making them look like there were no war crimes.
And so for those of you who don't know, to give you some context on this specific portion, what he was saying is that in the Paperclip program, what took place is once the Nazis were actually brought down and they were beginning to go through the Nuremberg trials, and I actually have a list, guys, because at the end of this, down below in the description, you can download the entire PDF. It's a little pack that's going to include things like the list of all the scientists, the Nazi scientists that were brought over through this. It's also going to include documents regarding Paperclip, Mockingbird, MKUltra, and a number of other things that I'm going to include in there for you guys. I've taken the time to do the research, and it's a freebie I'm going to throw at you. But this is the kind of stuff that you would also get access to in the Legend Members Only community. But it's really interesting to see how that played out. And we brought these people over. So instead of them being tried of whatever crimes that they had committed, right, they were getting the sentences imposed upon them in those Nuremberg trials. Their slates were wiped clean. They moved over their records and basically said, no, we're taking them, we're pulling them in to the U.S. because we want to use them. I mean, insane.
They brought these Nazi scientists into the CIA to work for the CIA, and that includes the human experiments they conducted on Jewish men, women, and children, and the psychological studies that these Nazi scientists had done. The CIA was using their expertise for these programs through Operation Paperclip, and this was Nazi, much of it occult beliefs that the CIA adopted and actually put these people on their payroll.
One of the programs that came out of Operation Paperclip was MKUltra. Now, MKUltra was a very complex program that dealt with human experiments and mind manipulation.
As this 1952 CIA memo says, the aim is controlling an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will, and even against such fundamental laws of nature as self-preservation.
In the Church Committee, MKUltra came out as an actual program of mind control using mental, physical, and sexual abuse and psychotropic drugs.
Lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD.
It was one of the first times that anybody had run into a powerful drug that was different than anything else that they knew anything about.
A decision was made at the highest levels of the CIA to do testing on unwitting Americans.
At Ravenscraig, Dr. Cameron went further with drugs and electric shock treatments than any researchers in the MKUltra project dared. His aim was to wipe the mind clean. Then he would implant new messages by forcing the patient to listen to a hypnotic repetition as many as 250,000 times. This was called psychic driving.
He would give the patient intensive electric treatment. He would attempt to implant new ideas in the mind of the patient.
Now, to a layman, it would appear that Dr. Cameron was trying to take the slate and wipe it clean, the slate being the mind. In other words, brainwashing.
Exactly, that's a very good comparison.
Brainwashing.
Yes, if you like.
No. Oh, good heavens.
You're doing fine, just try to describe it.
Oh, you don't know, you want to give yourself surgery.
How do you feel inside?
Inside? I'm living inside.
Nobody explained it to me. Nobody ever asked me if I was willing to do it or anything.
They put me on sleep treatment. And now they kept you asleep for 23 days. And while I was asleep, they were shocking the heck out of me with electric shocks and playing tapes.
Why are you letting away responsibility?
It was
really, like a concentration camp.
Want to talk feeling that is? You mind if I look this way?
You look that way. Nothing for you to watch here, but you're going to talk to me as we go along.
They couldn't go any further because CIA Director Richard Helms destroyed all the CIA's MKUltra documents, and they had to rely on coached witnesses. So they were never able to dig even deeper. What they got was bad enough.
The CIA worked hand in hand with Timothy Leary to develop LSD and issue it in MKUltra, this mind control program to basically wipe the slate clean of people, to brainwash them, if you will, to doing certain things, believing certain things, exposure to repetition. I mean, crazy. Chemical agents utilized on humans. These scientists came over and were working hand in hand to do these things.
It was never terminated. There's no evidence that it was ever terminated. No documents, no nothing, and not even an admission by the CIA that it's been terminated.
How do you feel?
I'm feeling better, thank you.
Feeling better? Are you sleeping well?
Yes, I'm sleeping better now.
We could disable a whole city by putting a very small amount on a water supply. After all of these years of us, those of us who are involved in looking for this secret drug, this was the only thing that began to look for the first time like it might be something like that.
So MKUltra was one of the hardest programs for me to wrap my head around because it's a lot of subset programs. And I was really surprised that Brad Martin knew about MKUltra.
People think that research people are crazy for talking about MKUltra, mind control. Even if they acknowledge that that existed, they go, oh, well, that ended in the 70s. That's a crock of shit.
And perhaps the world's only hope of stopping a sinister assassination plot.
The movie that I did involving that topic was Zoolander.
The fashion industry has been behind every major political assassination over the last 200 years.
I mean, at the time, I was making a comedy and I had no idea what I was involved with. But now looking back on the movie, I'm blown away at just the propaganda.
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
In a movie like Zoolander, when they're showing you that they're controlling Derek Zoolander's mind through mind control, you realize that they're trying to desensitize you and to make you think that what you're watching is fiction because it's in a comedy.
It's like a mass MKUltra now. Their purpose is to capture the minds of the people and feed them false history. The CIA is funneling information into Hollywood. Hollywood is putting out in the movies, and the population believes it.
All right, so look, here's the deal. They have been desensitizing us since we were born, and I'll give you some examples. Let's start with the big one. Let's start with words we hear all the time and never even think about. Let's start with the word entertainment. To entertain. What does that mean? To bind or hold. To bind or hold what? An audience's attention. Okay, now let's take the word Hollywood. Where does that come from? Well, Hollywood comes from the holly tree. And the ancient druids, back in the day, used to take the holly tree, make wands to weave spells, cast spells, or channel spells. And when they needed help, they would consult the magi's or the mediums of the day to help channel their spells to the population. We'll cut to today. What do we have in our houses? We have these black boxes. What are they called? TVs. But if you stop and you say the word television, and when you turn on that television, what do you get? What's the first thing that pops up? A list of channels. And when you turn on those channels, what's on those channels? Programming. They are programming you. They've been programming your whole life. You don't even know it. They do it with your music. They do it with your TV. They do it with your movies. They do it with your games. They have been programming us and programming you since you were little, and you don't even know it because you don't even question it.
I love this right here, guys. The allegory of the cave. Those of you who don't know, I recommend you go and read up about it. But this is so powerful because this really depicts what has been happening. But the allegory of the cave essentially is, as you can see depicted here in this picture, you got a fire being lit from behind this wall. And then they're lifting up different symbols and different types of shapes, etc. And that's projecting onto a wall. And as you can see on the other side of the wall, there's a guy who's frail. It looks like he's close to death, near death. He's old. Another guy that's just bones, a skeleton sitting right beside him. And they've basically lived their entire life sitting here, watching these projections, and what is being projected upon this wall for them is what they've absorbed and kept and maintained as their reality. It's their projection of reality for them. Now, the story goes that one of the guys actually escapes the cave. He takes off. He sees the fire and what's being projected. He says, you know what? Okay, looks like there's some steps up here. I'm going to go out and see what's up here. He finally identifies the true light source, which is outside in the real world. He detaches and breaks free from this projection of reality. And he says, what the heck? This is real life out here. This is where it's really at. This is what's really going on. So he runs back into the cave and goes and tells these guys, hey, listen, I know where real life is outside. There's a real sky. There's all these real things, trees. Everything is here. You can see it for yourself. You can touch it and feel it for yourself. But they didn't want to leave because the projection that was being given to them is all they had ever known and been force-fed. That was their reality, and they would not want to break free from that. They didn't want to think for themselves. They didn't want to see and experience for themselves. They wanted to be held up in this place where everything was being given and shown to them. And they also say that the fact is that when he saw the sun, when the guy that went out saw the sun, you know, you come in from a light place outside into a dark place. It kind of messes with your eyes. So it was almost like them saying, see, you can't even see what you're really talking about. You don't really even have true perspective, because he was brought back in the dark from being in the light. And it's just an amazing allegory. How does this connect to us today? Very much so. Think about it. Think about how many people you will try to share something like this with in just conversation. Like, yeah, right, dude, whatever. No, that's conspiracy theory. That's crazy talk. Don't bring that to me. And they can't see it. And those who have detached from the matrix, or so to speak, and have actually gone out and seen the light of day, and witnessed it for themselves, they're free. It's like, whoa, there's this real life out here, and I can witness and experience this for myself. Why would I ever want to be in that cave ever again? I don't want somebody shaping my reality and what I'm seeing. I want to go and do it for myself. But that's the way life is. Through music, through media, through news, TV shows, movies, everything around us has been shaping the way that we think and that we see the world, and is giving us a falsified reality, a fabricated reality, when we can experience reality for ourselves if we will detach, guys. And it's such a beautiful thing. Let's continue.
Starting in 1900, we entered a previously unimaginable time of modern technology. Advances that allowed the rulers of this world to construct and direct our stories in ways we previously never imagined. As a result, new techniques to control the population were realized. These are the people from the companies that we have trusted to deliver us our news and tell our stories. This has always been about controlling what we as the population think and hear. They help create our culture and influence our society. We as citizens only trust them because as a society, we think that the gatekeepers have our best interest in mind.
The dangerous, edges here are that he's trying to undermine the media, trying to make up his own facts, and it could be that while unemployment and the economy worsens, he could have undermined the messaging so much that he can actually control exactly what people think, and that is our job. That is our job. That is our job. Our job.
As I was researching, I found that most of the early communication companies were developed for shipping or aviation. And a lot of the men that started these companies were commissioned by the military during World War I and World War II. Many of these men worked for the Army and Navy intelligence services, along with the OSS, which we know became the CIA. There were many examples of these men becoming the heads or founders of some of the biggest motion picture and media companies before and after their government or military service. I wanted to know how many of the media companies in today's world connected back to Washington. So I started looking. It was like a family tree. The connections between our government personnel and the media corporations was unbelievable. Google, Amazon, Netflix, Twitter, CNN, ABC, So what would happen if all these companies had the same political ideology or agenda? We as this population like to hear people confirm our confirmation biases. We like to hear people tell us that we're right. We don't like to be wrong. And we believe that the people on the media and the people that we're listening to have our best interests in mind. The problem is what if they don't? So if you stop and think about it, they can place any agenda on the population that they choose.
And this is where it's really powerful because, you know, the truth is we get caught up so much into the political aspects, right? The left and the right, Democrat versus Republican, red versus blue. It's CNN versus Fox. It's this view versus my view. And what happens, or what's been happening, is they understand, the elite, the globalists at the top of the chain who maintain control and who desire to maintain control and will not lose control. They understand that if they can keep the house divided against itself, then it can't stand. It's a fact. If they can keep us separated from each other, they win. They want people to believe this side, but they also want people to believe this side. They want people to be radicalized Democrats and people to be radicalized Republicans. They want people to be absolutely opposed to each other because that's how they maintain control. If they keep the people separated, people can never come together, and the strength that's in our numbers can never be realized, and tear down these organizations, these agencies, these elite to hit that reset button and utilize the provisions within inside the Constitution to restructure this country and get back into a place where it's actually free and actually powerful and actually meaningful and great to the rest of the world. But they understand that. So that's why they keep us separated. So the same people that are owning Fox are the same people that are connecting and owning CNN. The same people who are running the GOP are the same people on the Democratic side. And it's all funneling. And what's interesting is they all hang out together. They all chill together. They all live together. They all do things together and enjoy life together while they keep us separated, and they maintain power, control, wealth, and it just continues to go on, and they're infiltrating and destroying things from the inside out, literally. And ultimately, as you guys have seen, they have an agenda to depopulate. Why do you think they're talking about all these wars, pandemics, climate crisis? The ultimate goal, if you listen and you've watched some of my videos, whether it be Ted Turner, Bill Gates, whether it be any number of these elite, the Rockefellers, they all say the same thing. There's too many people on the planet. We need to eliminate, we need to reduce the population. And then they've said this over and over again. And I'll include some clips down in the description so you can watch them for yourself. But this is a maintained view. It's not something new. They've been saying this for decades. And this is the ultimate goal. And if they can keep the people separated, they understand, hey, their numbers won't grow. And if we can reduce the population, that even further helps our cause. Because if we ever came together, if we ever organized and came together, and said, you know what, forget all this nonsense about whatever side you're on. Team humanity, we're coming together as people. If we can come together, there's strength in our numbers and we can overtake them. We can take it back, but people don't see it that way.
That Hollywood is teaching bad morals to the youth of this country as well as adults. Desensitizing of violence to the masses. You can't deny that. My kids have seen so many people get killed in very violent ways.
3 times as much gun violence now.
And the sex that's in PG-13 movies.
Why?
Every Disney movie, there's a major character, usually a parent, that gets killed. Trauma to the child. Why? It's so horrible. What a bad story. Why do you need to start a story with a parent dying? Always. It's so sad.
Under MKUltra, they experimented on children. We were even taught this in psychophysiology program that if you get to a child between ages 1 and 6 or 1 or 8, especially with sexual abuse or sexual trauma, you will split their personality and they will be imprinted the rest of their life. And many times that results in split personalities and dissociative behavior and other things.
These occult topics are being introduced to our kids, and most parents aren't even aware of it.
It's crazy that this stuff is being pumped to our children. And like they said, you know, they understand between the ages of 1 and 8. They've actually studied this stuff. That's how sickening this is. They've studied this and they understand this, and they're implementing it after knowing it. How sick and predatory is that? It's unbelievable.
So the biggest surge with this occult type material took place in the late 60s and the early 70s with movies like The Exorcist, Amityville Horror, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, and Roman Polanski's Rosemary's Baby. And coincidentally, this same time period, it parallels the rise of the Church of Satan in Los Angeles, and it was founded by a guy named Anton LaVey.
So it is done.
When I was a police officer, we had cases of satanic cults right in Arlington, Virginia. Those have been around for decades. They're in the high schools, they're in the colleges, they're in the government, and they're in Hollywood.
I got to meet people like Sammy Davis and that kind of shit. Sammy told me he worshiped the devil. Sammy was like, you know, Satan is as powerful as God. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? He says, why do you think there's so much anger in the world and killing and murder and Satan? And he saw my reaction to it, then he kind of lightened up on it. And he was like, the downtown is dark, and it's the candles on the table and Sammy's face over the candle. You know, Satan is as powerful as God.
From our point of view, it really makes no difference whether you pray to a father god or to a mother goddess or to an entire gaggle of gods and goddesses.
Michael Aquino was a high-level officer in the National Security Agency. He was and is, you'll see him today, a practicing Satanist. He created the Satanic Temple of Set, which he still runs. He was a high-level NSA officer. He's a member of the association I used to be in, the Association of Former Intelligence Officers, AFIO. He's a member of that. He's plugged in big time to the intelligence community, and he wrote a paper called Mind War. And Mind War was about psychological operations against populations, including the domestic population, using Satanist techniques and tools.
Aquino was first involved in MKUltra operations during the Vietnam War as part of the Phoenix program.
No, first I've been involved in intelligence and psychological operations for about 40 years in all levels of it and across the intelligence community.
You are a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army.
Correct.
Now, and how does the Army feel about you being head of the Temple of Set?
The Army has known about my religion for the entire span of my Army career, which began in 1968. The Army has paid very little attention to it, the same as it would to anybody who was, say, a follower of Hinduism or of Buddhism or any other slightly unusual religion today.
He was occupied a position at the Presidio, which was a training facility for the U.S. government, and it was uncovered that he was running a pedophile ring. I think 50 kids came out and fingered him as the guy that had done sexual acts on them as children. It went to trial. He walked from the trial successfully because he had a good attorney, despite the fact that there were multiple witnesses that said Aquino, through satanic rituals, had abused them as children. There's no question that he's a practicing Satanist. Just watch any one of his interviews.
On this altar is one of a number of daggers, which we may use in our rituals. This one happened to belong to the commanding general of the most elite unit of Germany's infamous SS, which was concerned with black magic and occultism research in general. Anything that it could find that had to do with the origins of the human race, destiny of humanity.
The perverted view of the occult held by Heinrich Himmler was of an evil magic that could help create a new master race. Wewelsburg Castle is where he performed his ceremonies.
I have been to the Wewelsburg, which still preserves Heinrich Himmler's ritual chambers to this day, and have conducted a black magical ritual in the so-called Hall of the Dead beneath the Wewelsburg. Our comrade in the Leibstandarte Theodor Wisch, Brigadeführer, a major general in the Waffen-SS. And on its blade, it bears the inscription, Mein Ehre heißt Treu, or my honor shall be known by my faithfulness.
Aquino's thesis stated that enemy populations could be subdued by inflicting a state of psychological terror and feelings of imminent destruction. He discusses the use of psychotronic weapons and electromagnetic weapons that influence the mind. By extremely low frequency signals, piggybacked on broadcasts of radio, TV, or microwave communications in order to influence and manipulate the thoughts and feelings of the target population. These ongoing MKUltra operations are functioning as a counterinsurgency and infiltration operation aimed at destabilizing the United States and other industrialized nations.
I give the CIA a total credit for sponsoring and initiating the entire consciousness movement, counterculture events of the 1960s.
History will judge the role of the CIA and other intelligence agencies in unwittingly contributing to the counterculture of the 60s through their intense interest in LSD and other hallucinogenics. But for the moment at least, the argument can be made that the CIA helped usher in the age of Aquarius.
Laurel Canyon was the epitome of the summer of love. I mean, we saw the possibility of the way we could live.
It's odd because in Laurel Canyon, so many of the soon-to-be stars there, their parents were in either the military-industrial complex or intelligence or the Pentagon. In Frank Zappa's case, his dad was working at Edgewood Arsenal, where they were doing biochem studies, psychotropic, and exposing U.S. troops to VX nerve gas and other things. The family kept gas masks in their house. He grew up with that in case there was an accident. And Edgewood Arsenal was doing this very similar, related MKUltra projects on U.S. troops. The Gulf of Tonkin is another prime example. The commander of the Gulf Fleet in the Gulf of Tonkin, his son was Jim Morrison. They claimed the USS Maddox was attacked by Vietnamese vessels. It was never attacked. As a matter of fact, they put ghost ships on the radar to make it look like they were Vietnamese ships. The Maddox was never attacked. It was an actual, literal false flag to enable the U.S. to declare war on Vietnam. So Jim Morrison's dad was involved in the false flag of the Gulf of Tonkin.
That's wild, guys. I'm going to stop it right there to give you a taste of this, but unbelievable. Gulf of Tonkin. Think about how many people we lost in Vietnam, the war that broke out there, the people that came back with all kinds of psychological issues, all from a false flag. Jim Morrison's dad helping to stage this false flag event in the Gulf of Tonkin, which sparked the ability for us to declare war and go into Vietnam. Think about all the other things that we don't even know about, all the other programs, other operations we don't even know the names of, things that are happening right now that we have no clue about. And we are just being inundated with all these things. I go back to Michael Aquino, the guy who was the Satanist, and he talks about him having a pedophile ring. 50 kids came out and pointed him out and said, this is the guy. But because he had a good attorney, he was able to walk away and get away from that without any charges being placed against him. But I think about kind of some of the stuff that's happening right now. This is a side thing, but it connects in a way. I have two friends of mine, one that works for DHS, one that works for HHS. And they've been telling me about what's really happening with this whole situation down in the border crisis, a lot of people coming across. And he's worked at a number of facilities. And mind you, this guy, one of them has had over 32 years of experience working within the federal government, working within the military, and then working with some of these other agencies. And what he's done over the last couple of years has worked to go and open up a number of these facilities, oversaw some things, multiple positions. I'll just leave it at that. And in his tenure of doing this, he's worked at the facilities that primarily house children. So they'll separate them from the adults. They bring in the boys and girls. They separate them into two different units, boys and girls. Usually about 8 kids per pod, he was saying. And in these pods, these kids have everything that a kid could want, right? They have bedding, they have clothing, they have a play area where they have foosball, they have ping pong, they got a massive big screen TV, they got a PS5, anything they want to do, everything, food, etc. They have access to all of it. They bring these kids in and they give them a $2,000 phone, and then they link them up with a sponsor. So these kids stay here for a moment of time and then they get shipped off to these different sponsors all across the US. What he was saying is that a lot of times from the inner workings of the people who are directly connecting with the kids, they're saying, hey, when am I going to see my mom? When am I going to see my brother or my sister? And these sponsors that you guys are sending me to, these aren't my family members. I don't know these people. Why am I being sent there? How long am I going to be there? And he said it just blew him away, number one. But then to follow up on that, they have a program in place that with that $2,000 phone that they're giving to these kids, when they're shipping them off to these sponsors that many times they have no idea who they are, they're arriving at these sponsor locations and they have to, every so many days, log into an app, do a face scan, and then it pings their location to let them know where they are and that they're still okay, they're still in connection, or they're at that sponsor location. 85 to 90%, he told me, and these are stats based upon their numbers, of these kids who are going to these sponsorship locations are never checking in. They're disappearing. The sponsor locations can't account for them. They don't know where they are. But here's the kicker. Now, after these kids are disappearing and being dispersed, where are they going? Are they being child trafficked? Are they going through some sex trafficking ring? Are they being shipped off to Ukraine? Is that where this money is being hidden from? All the money that's being pumped there? Have they legalized a sex trafficking or child trafficking ring here in the U.S. and the U.S. taxpayer is paying for it? I started thinking about this and he told me, he says, here's the interesting part. He said, Joe, I have all these credentials. I have all these security clearances, all these things. I have kids of my own. I've been an upstanding member of society. I'm a good citizen, law-abiding citizen. I've worked at the highest levels and at the lowest levels of government. I know how all this stuff works. What's crazy, he said, because of my position, they will not let me interact with any of the kids directly. So the information I'm getting is from people who are working with these kids. He says, so I can't ask them questions. They can't ask me questions. If I even see them in a building, I have to turn around and walk away. But yet, these sponsors who are receiving these kids and they're being dispersed, and 85 to 90% of them are disappearing, never checking in, and they can't account for them. But yet, every month, these sponsors' names, the same sponsors, are popping up back on the list to receive another 12, 24, 30, 40 kids. They're making anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000 per day housing these kids and then shipping them off to these sponsors, and then they're disappearing. How could you not believe that it's something out of the Sound of Freedom? And it just blew me away and it broke my heart to hear that. But how many things like that are going on right under our nose? But think about how inundated we are. I mean, we don't even get the chance to stop and do anything. Whether we are looking at our phones, at our devices, right? We're looking at these screens, whether we are hopping on our computers or the radio or the TV, we're getting pumped with information. We got to go to our 9-to-5 job, and it's from start to stop. Screens, projections, narratives, agendas that are being pumped into us, force-fed, and we just believe and assume that they're true because of where they're coming from. Never taking the time to really stop and pay attention to the details and the inner workings of what's really going on in reality around us. Like we talked about, the allegory of the cave, the projection of the reality that's been given to us, force-fed, and we just believe it. And it's gotten so comfortable, so used to it. It's what we do every day that we don't even know how to step outside and experience reality for ourselves and shape our own thoughts and shape our own likes and dislikes, but we're letting other people shape and do them for us. And there's so much more that goes into this, but I wanted to let you guys experience this clip and see it for yourself. I want to hear what you think about this. So be sure to drop your comment down below. I don't care if it's this little or if it's a book. Drop your comments. I want to hear from you guys because I know you have great input and our community wants to receive that here. Now, listen, if you've enjoyed this content and you find it valuable, consider hitting that subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up, guys. Turn on the bell for notifications so you know when we drop new content. And remember, you can always join our members-only community. We are funded completely and independently. Like, we can't do this without your support. So if you find this valuable, consider down below in the description hitting the donation link. Donate, contribute to what we're doing, pick up some of the merchandise. We have shirts, we have hats. We're coming out with more gear specifically for the Fight the PSYOPS series. And I look forward to banding together with you guys. Look, we're coming into 2024. It's going to be a crazy year. I believe there's a lot more that we're getting ready to experience that they are going to fabricate and create. You have to get your mind ready. Be wise as serpents and gentle as doves. Keep your eyes open. And don't forget, to fight the PSYOPs. Love you guys. Joey Vantes here. Until next time. Peace.